As Vice Chair of the Commission, I call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to order at, looking for the time here, 1:06 p.m. Greetings to Ann Arbor. We're happy to be here today. There are several groups that are making this meeting possible. I would like to thank Tom Avaco, Bonnie Roberts, and Logan Woods of the Center for Local, State, and Urban Policy here at the University of Michigan, Ellen Werman, and Nate Hall, Campus Election Management Project, Landon Myers, Campus Vote Project. It's gratifying that so many groups are here to assist the MICRC with engaging people in redistricting here in Michigan. This Zoom webinar is being live streamed at youtube.com. You can access it at www.youtube.com/MICHSOS office/videos. For anyone in the public watching who would prefer to watch via a different venue than they are currently using, please visit our social media at Redistricting@MI to find the link for viewing on YouTube. Our live stream today includes closed captioning. Closed captioning, ASL interpretation, and Spanish, Arabic, and Bengali translation services will be provided for effective participation in this meeting. Email us at redistricting@michigan.gov for additional viewing options or details on accessing language translation services for this meeting. People with disabilities needing other specific accommodations should also contact redistricting@michigan.gov. This meeting is being recorded and will be available at www.gov/MICRC for viewing at a later date. This meeting is also being transcribed, and those closed caption transcripts will be made available and posted on michigan.gov/MICRC, along with written public comment submissions. There is also a public comment portal that may be accessed by visiting michigan.gov/MICRC. This portal can be utilized to post maps and comments, which can be viewed by both the commission and the public. Members of the media who may have questions before, during, or after the meeting should direct those questions to Edward Woods III, Communications and Outreach Director for the Commission at woodse3@michigan.gov or 517-331-6309. For the purposes of the public watching and for the public record, I will turn to the Department of State staff to take note of the commissioners present.
Hello, commissioners. Please say present when I call your name. If you're attending the meeting remotely, please announce during roll call that you are attending remotely. And unless your absence is due to military duty, please disclose your physical location by stating the county, city, township, or village and the state from which you are attending. I'll start with Doug Clark.
Present.
Juanita Curry. Anthony Eade.
Present.
Brittany Kellum. Rhonda Lang.
Present, attending remotely from Reed City, Michigan.
Steve Lett.
Present.
Cynthia Orton.
Present.
MC Rothhorn.
Present.
Rebecca Satella.
Present.
Janice Villette.
Present.
Aaron Wagner.
Present, attending remotely from Charlotte.
Richard Weiss.
Present.
Dustin Witches.
Present.
11 commissioners are present and there is a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. As a reminder to the public watching, you can view the agenda at www.michigan.gov/MICRC. I would now entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
Second.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Eade. Before we move forward with that motion, did we want to, we had some discussion yesterday about that unfinished business would be listed, but that we wanted to move it further in the agenda. Did we want to amend the meeting agenda to remove 5A and possibly move it down to 6D where we already have communities of interest continuing?
I'll say yes.
Okay, could I get a motion to amend to that effect?
I will motion to amend to that fact.
Motion to amend the meeting agenda to remove item unfinished business A and combine that with item 6D, communities of interest. So motion made by Commissioner Rothhorn. Is that an accurate summation of your motion, Commissioner Rothhorn?
Yes, thank you for your summary.
And some seconded by Commissioner Lett. Unless there is any discussion or debate on the motion. And I actually can't see if Rhonda or Aaron have their hands raised from where I'm at. Okay, looks like they do not. All right, so let's vote on the motion to amend the meeting agenda. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. Okay, so the motion prevails. The meeting agenda is amended as indicated to move 5A and merge it with new business 6D. So let's go back to our original motion, which was a motion to approve the meeting agenda, which was motioned by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Eid. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Hearing none, let's move forward with the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. All right, the motion prevails and the agenda as amended is adopted. Thank you very much, everybody. Without objection, we will now begin public comment pertaining to agenda topics portion of our meeting. Hearing no objections, we will now proceed with public comment pertaining to agenda topics. Individuals who have signed up and indicated that they would like to provide in-person public commentary to the commission will now be allowed to do so. Please step forward to the nearest microphone when I call your number. You will have 20 minutes to address the commission. I'm sorry, 20 minutes, 2 minutes. Holy cow. We'd be here all day and I would never hear the end of that from people in other areas where I only give 2 minutes. So 2 minutes to address the commission. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the timer. First in line to provide public comment is number 1.
There we go. It's on. All right. Hi, everyone. Is it back on? Good. I'm here to talk about my community of interest, which is the Lake St. Clair community of interest. I gave a public comment in Warren, but wasn't totally happy that I painted the right picture. So this is Lake St. Clair, and these are all the northeast suburbs of Detroit. What I'm talking about are all the communities, all the cities that border Lake St. Clair through northern Wayne, Macomb, and around St. Clair County. We care about stewardship of this lake, and we live a different lifestyle than the people inland. This area here and here in Macomb County, in southern Macomb County, and in Detroit, these corridors are industrial corridors. This area here, the Mound Van Dyke corridor, coming all the way from Hamtramck and up to the Clinton River, is full of auto plants, heavily industrialized. The area here, the Gratiot corridor that leads into downtown Detroit, out of from Mount Clemens to downtown Detroit, is an area that is a mix of aging commercial and light industrial. We have different interests, and if you cut us east-west and slice up our lakeshore, the people inland will have power to outvote us every time. We have about 200,000 people in this area in the Lake St. Clair community of interest. It's a great start to a state Senate district. And one thing I want to point out that I didn't back in Warren is a very specific issue, which is the dumping of sewage into our lake. The federal government, the EPA, has said you are supposed to separate your storm and sewer drainage systems. Most of these cities have not. My hometown of Grosse Pointe Park has. Of course, these cities don't suffer the consequence when there's a big rain event and they dump their sewage in here. The people here have their beaches shut down and their waterfront recreation shut down when that happens. And it's not fair that we're separated east-west as opposed to north-south. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 2.
Hello, I'm Ed Saunders from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I first want to thank the commission for this heavy lift. I know it's a big task and I do generally, genuinely appreciate it. People are going to tell you a lot of things about these specific instances and input, just like you just heard. I want to draw your attention back to the forest here. And that forest in my mind is partisan gerrymandering. Since 2000, the party with the most ballots in Michigan won only the state house only half the time. So over these last 20 years, due to partisan gerrymandering, fully half the time, Michiganders got the opposite of what they voted for. Over our state's history, this has been done by Democrats and Republicans when they were in power. In 2018, the Michigan citizens fought very hard, and I fought very hard to rectify this by overwhelmingly passing Proposition 2. The majority of votes in every county, the majority of voters in every county voted for this amendment. Because of that, the Constitution now demands that this committee draw fair districts, and they must meet this specific criterion. Districts shall not provide a disproportionate advantage to a political party. And further, our Constitution demands that this committee explicitly verify the partisanship fairness by, quote, using accepted measures of partisan fairness. Therefore, I urge the committee to measure and evaluate this partisan fairness at every stage in the drawing of the maps. There's no point in doing otherwise because the citizens and the courts will require this in the end. So please don't waste precious time drawing maps that do not recognize an objective standard for partisan fairness, such as the efficiency gap analysis. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 3.
Hi, my name is David Brzezinski. I live in the Ann Arbor area. And I basically wanted to stand to remind basically the commission, basically that voting is important. And that, you know, if anything, it's the more voting we get, the better, because voting is democracy. It's the very definition of what democracy is. And so anything that you do or we do or anybody does that makes voting less likely or restricts voting in any kind of way is actually a very negative thing for the democracy that we all believe in. And that's, and as it was spoken before, gerrymandering for political purposes is one of the major problems with with voting, because what it does is it discourages people from voting by making them feel that their vote doesn't count, and that makes them less likely to vote, which is bad for democracy. And so I'm encouraging the commission to take into account the idea that when you get done with your redistricting, it should encourage the most people to vote in the state, and encourage people to feel that the vote that they have really counts, and that it's not just going through the motions to let the same representative get back in office time after time. We need districts that really encourage people to step up and express how they feel about their government every time they get the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 4.
Thank you very much for what you do. Thanks. As you all know, we're very familiar with the odd and weird shaped of districts throughout the United States and also here in Michigan. And they're designed in that way to give advantages to one party or the other at one time or another. If we can have odd shapes for that reason, we can certainly have odd shapes to produce districts that are equally balanced. Why do we want equally balanced in our various districts? Think about that for a minute. The candidate now has to win votes. They aren't given to him by district boundaries. He has to talk to, he or she, as the candidate may be, has to talk to the people he's going to represent, convince them that he has the values that they subscribe to. It brings forth the value of how volunteers can help in each district, and that in itself will increase people's involvement and voter participation. As we look forward to that, this could result in the candidate having to be more communicative, having more open sessions, having more time to spend with the individual in his district. Might bring back to the candidacy some honesty, the values that we think about: honesty, transparency, and really representation. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 5.
Hi, my name is Don Danico, and I'm a longtime Ann Arbor resident. I think the most important thing is that the districts are competitive, and of course, other speakers have said the same. What really is hurting the state and the nation in general is that too many people are giving up on democracy. And by having unequal districts, people say, why should I vote? The outcome is already determined. And what that leads to is what we saw on January the 6th. People can't give up on democracy. When they do, that's the end. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 6.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Robert George, and I had the pleasure of speaking before this body at your first public hearing in Jackson, Michigan. At that meeting, I spoke about the importance of the Washtenaw-Jackson connection as a Washtenaw County Parks and Recreations Commissioner, and the impact that the Waterloo Recreation Area that covers both counties has on our natural interactions out in nature, as well as the importance of making sure that people have those opportunities within one district. I wanted to reemphasize this point from another perspective. 11% of Jackson workers, 11%, commute into Washtenaw County for work every single day. And the economic ties between the counties go beyond that when it comes to labor, when it comes to material shipping. The connections between Washtenaw and Jackson are substantial. And I also wanted to make the note that you can actually draw 2 complete state Senate districts between Washtenaw and Jackson counties that are blockish, that respect communities of interest, that are complete in regards to population, and that don't even have a weird look to them. I would encourage you to explore this idea. That is a very reasonable and a very easy thing to do between the 2 counties of Washtenaw and Jackson. I also wanted to make a couple of quick points about some broader process points. When it comes to breaking cities, it is critical that you explore the idea of breaking cities where it's needed, because the way that voters across the state are sorted, Democrats are often packed heavily into cities, while Republicans are more equally distributed across the state. So please explore that. I know that Commissioner Eid has taken a lead on some of those questions. I hope the rest of the commission can look into that. I think it's very important. And I want to conclude by echoing the point that the party that wins the most votes statewide should win the most seats. That should be an imperative for your maps. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Could you confirm, were you 6 or 7? I'm sorry. Okay. All right. That's what I thought. Just want to make sure. Number 7.
Hi, I just want to say, after taking my mask off, I already have lipstick up my nose, so just ignore that. Sorry. So my name is Therese Freed. I'm here from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I have 3 points to make, one of which has already been made, and that is that the most important principle is one person, one vote. I'll get emotional about this because I'm an advocate and I encourage people to go out and vote and learn about their candidates and learn about the issues. And when people go out and vote and their votes don't matter, it strikes at the heart of democracy, because it strikes at their hearts. They're heartbroken because their votes don't count. We can't disenfranchise people in that way. So number 1, one person, one vote. Number 2, some people have commented, not here, but online, that rural areas should be kept intact because they have an identity as rural. One of the greatest threats to our democracy, though, is the extreme polarization being driven in part by perceived differences between rural and urban residents. But in fact, rural and urban people have more in common than not. We all need, for instance, reliable broadband, affordable health care, accessible transportation, easy access to healthy food, a clean environment, and so much more. So maintaining the artificial boundaries between urban and rural areas obscures these common interests and drives further polarization. So I hope you will blend urban and rural areas to drive us together towards solutions for the common good. Finally, my 3rd point is to end prison gerrymandering, please. Counting prisoners who disproportionately come from urban areas, and as we all know, are disproportionately people of color, as residents of the prisons which are disproportionately in rural areas, disenfranchises the prisoners and the communities that they come from and rightfully live in. Several states have already eliminated prison gerrymandering. They include, never mind, I hope you'll make us one of them. Thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 8.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is James Johnson Jr. I've previously spoke with you guys in Jackson. Just wanted to hit a couple things home. I live in Jackson County, and like some of my other co-workers, I've been driving to Ann Arbor for 21 years. I would like to have a candidate that represents me at my home and my job. I think that it's important that we make a district that makes sense, that's nonpartisan, and I would like you guys to combine Jackson County with the western side of Ann Arbor. Seems how a lot of people drive to Ann Arbor like myself, and I think it's fair to be able to be represented by the same candidate. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 9.
Hello, my name is Mike Cox. I want to thank you for the work that you do. I know that the task that you have is daunting. The main thing that I would like to see come out of this is fair and nonpartisan districts. I reiterate what I've heard before as far as not disenfranchising the voters and letting the vote count. I am one of that 11% that live in Jackson and work in this area. I've worked in this area for over 30 years. There are definite links in between Jackson County and Washtenaw County. I just think that, along with the speaker before me, that I would like to see my home and my work represented by the same candidates. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 10.
My name is Catherine Askew. I live near Unadilla in Linden Township, Washtenaw County, which is currently part of Congressional District 7. A decade ago, before returning to my husband's home state of Michigan, we lived in Texas, where I first became aware of the potential abusive powers of gerrymandering. Now it is being referred to as the Texas Taliban. Those gerrymandered Texas districts have been weaponized to strip away constitutional privileges, including endangering women's healthcare rights, access to voting, and safe schools. These are the dangers of politicians picking their voters rather than voters selecting their politicians. Legislative districts should be based upon geography and population rather than upon voter demographics and prior voter preferences. A properly configured district makes it efficient for representatives to meet their constituents in a well-defined geographic area rather than those drawn in a gerrymandered hodgepodge. District 7 currently looks and functions like a gerrymandered Texas district. Please redraw it as a nonpartisan example of fair districting. And I thank all of you very much for serving on the commission.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 11. Do we have a number 11? One more time. All right, if not, we will move on to number 12.
Hello, my name is Gregory Fox, longtime Ann Arbor resident. I, along with a few thousand others, I worked, put in a lot of volunteer hours into this campaign and even applied to the panel, but you're the unlucky ones. So communities of interest are fine. I talked it up during the campaign, but my main motivating force, and I think that of many of the people I volunteered with, was to have our representatives reflect the overall aggregate vote across the state so that a party that got a clear majority of the votes statewide has a majority say in Lansing and representing us in Washington. That would be success. Another different point is
Your next two public meetings fall right in the Jewish high holy days, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I really hope the next scheduled events, you will show more respect, check the calendar for the significant holidays of the various religions. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 12. Sorry, I skipped number, so number 13.
Hi.
I didn't have number 11. That's right. Go ahead.
Thank you, commissioners, for the job that you're doing and the job that you have ahead of you. My name is Mike Hayder. I'm a resident of Monroe County. And one of the questions that was proposed to me when I came in by one of the commissioners was, could I help you guys distinguish what was Monroe County, whether it was a rural or suburban commuter community? And as a lifelong resident of Monroe, I certainly believe we are a suburban community. I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe that over 20% of Monroe County residents work in Wayne County, and almost just under 20% work in Ohio, in Toledo community, in the Toledo area, with only 1% working in the Lenawee County area. So I do believe we have much more common with the Wayne County downriver area, and I hope you take that into consideration. Also, to keep the I-75 and 23 corridors separate. The I-75 corridor definitely is more of the suburban manufacturing community, whereas the 23 would be somewhat more of the rural community. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 14.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I, like the rest of the speakers, want to thank you for taking on this historical opportunity. My name is Dan Minton. I'm born and raised in Monroe County, and I rise here today to talk about the community of interest also. I've seen a lot of comments made on rural Monroe County. It does have areas that are rural. However, it is heavy industrial. We are more in common with Wayne County than Lenawee County. We have, most people refer to it as the little downriver. We talk about our city. We have the river runs through there, which is very common to the downriver area in Wyandotte. We strive to build our community like downriver and have all the business that they have. We have the Lake Erie we share with them, with all the fishing industry that goes on there. Those are the parts of interest that I believe Monroe County represents. I hope you take that into consideration also. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 15.
Thank you, Commission. Jerry Young, City of Monroe, lifelong resident. As stated earlier, I would ask that this commission follow the Constitution. Partisan fairness is more important than following the city, the county lines, and making these compact districts. Funny shapes are okay, but what's not okay is a system that does not adequately represent the people. Monroe County is much different than Lenawee County and should not be in the same district. The House district should reflect the residents of these counties. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 16.
Hi, Aaron Squeo from Macomb County. In Macomb County, the demographics of northern Macomb and southern Macomb are drastically different. Southern Macomb is more of an inner ring suburban area, and their interests are far different than an area that is more rural and in northern Macomb County. And I would just like to see you guys take that into consideration, as well as trying to, make it so that things are more fair as well. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 17.
Hello, my name is Bridget Bly. I'm an Ann Arbor resident. I was watching the draft mapping that was happening on September 30th when you were making Michigan house maps in the southwest corner of Michigan. And I was concerned because it seemed as if the maps were being drawn with regard only to population of existing townships. and compactness. One of the great things about this redistricting that we have in Michigan this year, is that community of interest are supposed to be taken into account. It's the third criteria. It's ahead of existing boundaries. It's ahead of compactness. And when I listened to the stated rationales that commissioners were making for these maps, they were entirely along the lines of make the numbers work. And the townships were included or excluded in these districts based almost entirely on their population. I did not hear the word community of interest one time in that whole session. So I am hoping that as you go forward, the commissioners will take communities of interest as seriously as the Constitution wants them to. And I have this hope, possibly because of this agenda change, but I really would like to see the Constitution taken seriously here in the way that these districts are made. Thank you very much for all your hard work. I know it's a hard job.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 18.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Damon Jacobs. I'm a lifelong resident of Washtenaw County, 40 years here in Ann Arbor. I grew up here. The last 8.5, I've been in Ypsilanti Township. I just want to speak on the redistricting mapping. As far as like Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor, I think that they should be separate because of their needs and views, and their overall interests are different. I didn't think so when I lived in Ann Arbor, but now I live in Ypsi. I see the difference. You know, it's always different. And basically, that's what I want to say.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 19.
Thank you, commissioners, for all the work you do. I am Roland Wong, and I teach here in Ann Arbor in the program in American Culture and Asian American Studies. Remember 3 words: keep Canton whole. I'm speaking for the Asian American community of interest, and Canton Township is a vital place for the Asian American population. 14.1% of the population in Canton is Asian, 8% South Asian. It has a demographic quite different than the surrounding communities. Plymouth to the north with 5.2% Asian, and Belleville 0.46% Asian. So Canton is really a unique community of interest. Canton's leadership at the township level and at the Plymouth Canton School District level reflects the rich diversity of Canton. And also the Ford Road corridor reflects the diversity in its businesses and restaurants. Significant Asian American presence in business and restaurants. With a population of 98,659 in the 2020 census, it deserves its own state house district, and it fits neatly into a state senate district with the communities to the north, Plymouth, Plymouth Township, and Dorfville, where I reside. The vibrance of the community and the APA community within it is a vital element for its community of interest. Keep Canton whole. 3 words, keep Canton whole. It's a square 36 miles. The geography couldn't be any better in terms of a compactness of Canton. Keep Canton whole. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Number 20.
I think I get the award for being one of the youngest people in the room, but I'm honored to speak before the commission today. I am a University of Michigan Ann Arbor student, proud Michigander for 20 years now, gosh. And I have been voting in Clarkston, Michigan and in Ann Arbor on and off between. But I want to talk about the importance of considering who and where we are voting. As someone who votes in Clarkston, I recognize my need there because I am a citizen who can have leverage in the partisan agenda that I may have there. In Ann Arbor, I know what the voting is going to be. And so by understanding how to draw districts and empowering voters, young people like me to get out there, you can all make a difference. It truly makes a difference to see that my vote matters in the community that I'm working in. It's great to support people back home, but I have my parents to vote, so I always have to encourage them. And so as a young person, looking at people coming into the state of Michigan, if they already know Ann Arbor is one way or the other, they may not be encouraged to vote. But by having a center in place to see how different demographic ideologies within the area are changed, we can have leverage in getting more political activism out there for the entire state of Michigan. Because I know we, as Ann Arbor students, serve a lot of different areas across the state of Michigan, and we're proud to do so. So considering how to break up cities like Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, which are kind of Democratic strongholds, understanding how we can use and leverage complex tools, which are way beyond my head, but I know and trust that you all have the ability to assess which things are going to make the best opportunities for young people like me to vote, because you are making a difference that may last years down the line. And so voters like me really do care, and voters like us really do care about what you do. And so thank you for that. And we hope to consider all the different parameters that you would consider as a commission. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Right, at this point, we are going to move into our first round of comments for remote public comments. Individuals who have signed up and indicated they would like to provide live remote public comment to the commission will now be allowed to do so. I will call on your name and our staff will unmute you. If you are on a computer, you will be prompted by the Zoom app to unmute your microphone and speak. If you are on the telephone, a voice will say the host would like you to speak and prompt you to press *6 to unmute. I will call on you by your name. Also, please note that if you experience technical or audio issues or we do not hear from you to 3 to 5 seconds, we will move on to the next person in line and then return to you after they are done speaking. If your audio still does not work, you can email us at redistricting@michigan.gov and we will help you troubleshoot so you can participate during the next public comment period at a later hearing or meeting. You will have 2 minutes to address the commission. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the timer. First in line to provide live remote public comment is Mr. James Gallant.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is James Gallant. I'm with the Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition, and these are my opinions. And I would like to remind everybody that the database, the Audubon Edge, and the Moon Dutchins database, the COI database, these are gig workers. I was reading in their contracts that any value-added products that are generated from this exercise are the property of the state of Michigan, and we should be getting royalties for any future sales of any kind of use for this database that we are creating, the people of the state of Michigan right now in real time. And so we keep that in mind. So to get some royalties in the future, we need to make sure that we own that in the contracts and get that covered. And please ask Tom Iveco I spoke to him extensively on these rules of procedure and how this all works. And we did have some agreements, and he had a little disagreements with me, but ask him to please make a report from his office there at University of Michigan and to say, hey, these are the rules, Robert's Rules of Order, this is how it works, this is how it's been working. And to get that in real time instead of waiting, a couple of years down the road and we figure all this out. And also, I'd like to thank the map maker. Is that Ken? Is that him? Yesterday, he didn't allow Commissioner Witches to get his bullying tactics approved, and he tried to say, "Hey, I want those regional lines removed from that map." But it wasn't even his turn; it was Commissioner Lang's turn. And Commissioner Lang, thank you for not letting him to bully you either, and just kind of went through and said, "No, they're going to stay there." But that's the problem with what this configuration is going on. Your attorney, January 30th, stated to you clearly that all comments have to go through the chair. That's Robert's Rules of Order. You don't have personal engagement between the members. This is why the rifts happen. This is why it gets personal. And I think that's what Commissioner Witches is trying to make this case. The commissioners out there. These are we need to bond and we need to get, these relationships going. And that's the bad part. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Now that the first opportunity for both in-person and remote public comment has concluded, without objection, we will now hear from individuals seeking to provide a second 2-minute public comment. Hearing no objection, we will now proceed with individuals seeking to provide a second 2-minute public comment. Individuals who have signed up and indicated they would like to provide in-person public commentary to the commission will now be allowed to do so. Please step to the nearest microphone when I call your number. You'll have 2 minutes to address the commission, and please conclude your remarks when your 2 minutes have ended and you hear the timer. Number 1.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak a little more. There are a couple things I forgot to mention that are important. One is the MGGG report put my hometown of Grosse Pointe Park into two clusters, one of which is very heavily aligned, extremely aligned with my community of interest, the Lake St. Clair community of interest. That's A9, I believe. The other one is A5, where they say that the 5 Grosse Pointes and the east side of Detroit are a cluster. And there is some comment to that effect, but the summary of that is made it sound like it's an industrial area that has a lot of unemployment. And that is true of much of the east side of Detroit. It's not true of the Grosse Pointes. And so if somebody didn't know the area, I wanted to make that point, that there's a limit to what a computer algorithm can tell you. I live in a 50-50 political area that cares about our natural resources, but we're professionals. And I don't want anybody to get the idea that that's not what Grosse Pointe is. Grosse Pointe may not be what your idea of Grosse Pointe is. We're more middle class than that, but we're a lot like St. Clair Shores, for example. That's one thing. Second thing is community of interest versus partisanship. Again, I live in a 50-50 area. If somebody were trying to create Democrat districts, they could take a big chunk of Detroit and slap Grosse Pointe a 50-50 area on and say, well, I've done something, to help Democrats out. And that would be okay, but for the fact that it would split up my community of interest. So there is a ranking, and it's important because this is really the entire region I've drawn here is a 50-50 area where you can have, for example, a Republican who's a conservationist. That's why community and local interests matter more. Both they should matter more in terms of policy, but they also matter more in terms of the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask that you stay at the microphone for 1 second? Because we did have a question from one of our commissioners for you. So if you could just come back and answer. Yeah. Commissioner Wagner does have a question that she would like to ask you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Hello. Through the chair to Mr. Dindoffer, I would like to ask a clarifying question, please.
Sure.
Mr. Dindoffer, you had said that you had the start of a Senate district in drawing your Lake St. Clair district. Where else would you propose we get the rest of that Senate district from if it's not a complete district as is?
No, that's a great point. I was drawing a community of interest, and I've seen a couple of different ideas. One is St. Clair River. We share the same watershed. And I think up until you get to actually to Port Huron, it's not industrial really. It's people who have a similar lifestyle and the fact that they are in sync with their water resource. I understand that it wouldn't be a terribly compact area, but basically everything between I-94 and the water could work. Another idea is northern Macomb County. Above what I've drawn here, another area is part of the more residential area of Macomb County, not the industrial area. Is this one color of green? It's a part of Macomb Township, or this is the Clinton River that divides the industrial areas of Macomb County from more just residential cul-de-sacs. That's more suburban. In that sense, it's similar. It depends. There are different people who have different views, and I'd be happy with any of them. I'd be happy taking Harper Woods, which I've drawn as part of this Gratiot corridor. But, they share a school system with the Grosse Pointes. Add Harper Woods. Add, if you think Mount Clemens, fine. I'd be happy with any of them. I think the people who are most closely aligned with the values that I have expressed in terms of a bipartisan view of conservationism are the people in the St. Clair River area, but that, I'm not wedded to that. I hope, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 2.
Hello again, Roland Wong. I teach at the University of Michigan here in Asian American Studies. I told you that I wanted you to recall 3 words, and that is keep Canton together. Actually, I want you to remember 6 words. And the other 3 words is keep Troy together. Keep Troy together. The Asian American Community of Interest argues for keeping the city of Troy together. Troy is a vital community of interest for the Asian American population. Its 2020 population of 87,294 is 25.6% Asian. 28% of the Troy School District population in Troy is Asian, according to ProPublica. There's a significant presence of Chinese, Korean, and South Asians within Troy. It is reflected in the churches, the temples, the gurdwaras, the businesses, and the community centers in and near Troy. These figures and the physical presence of the APA community make Troy and its Asian American population a standout among communities in Oakland County. Much of the Troy population would fit well into a state house district, and with the addition of Clawson to the south and Rochester Hills to the north, it would be a unique and compact state Senate district. Keeping Troy intact as a community of interest and as an Asian American community of interest would fit into the larger state Senate district and the congressional district. Keep Troy together. It's not perfectly square like Canton. It does take a little cut for the city of Clawson, but essentially keep Troy together. Thank you very much.
Thank you for addressing the commission. At this point, we will move back to our remote public commentary. Individuals who have signed up and indicated that they would like to provide live remote public commentary will now be provided an opportunity to do so. We will use the same process as the first round. First in line to provide remote public commentary is Mr. James Gallant.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Okay, James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition. These are my opinions. And what just happened there? Because I believe it's been said many times over and over. This is not question and answer time at the public podium. This is public comment time, and you just gave that guy. Who is that guy? I'm just wondering, how did that guy just get picked up? He comes up the second time. All of a sudden, hey, I have some questions for you, and you've never allowed that. And this is what I was telling you about the California model. You know, you said you were going by some California model. You didn't incorporate it. And the California model, they do get to answer to the public in real time during the meeting. But there's only two responses. That would be to request a report from staff or to add that item to a future agenda. And that's it. You got two responses that you can do. And you should have been doing that the whole time. And now all of a sudden, out of the blue, how did, I don't know, that worked. Somebody, I think these statements are being clearly planted for you folks to sit back and go, hey, look at that. Somebody said that, and we're just going to do it. And then, good luck in court with all this, because Commissioner Lang, it's in the transcript, in January 30th, 2021, and Commissioner Witches explained that apparently there's a sidebar rule that everybody agreed upon that a member can call a member of the public out of order at the podium and put them in some kind of timeout, kind of. Commissioner Witches was talking about, and then you bring them back later, and if they behave or something, I don't know what it was. But it was like they voted on this stuff. But it's straw polling. That's exactly what you're doing. Is what you're going to do today. You're going to start a discussion, and you're going to straw poll to see if, there's support. Okay, boom, 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 and all of a sudden the Witches or somebody's going to, I want to make a motion, and boom, boom, boom. Yeah, this is really bad. This is really bad. And this is that community, this bully victim situation, where the bully and then the victim becomes another bully, and then they work together. That's a bully victim situation. It's one of the highest risk factors for especially youth, is to be put in that situation like you are. I notice all the time, it's like, you go, well, yeah, somebody agrees with.
Thank you for addressing the commission, Mr. Gallant. I'd like to remind everybody to please go to our public comment tool and share your comments in writing, including any specific areas of the map of which you are speaking. The public comment tool is available at www.michigan.gov/MICRC. This concludes our public comment for this afternoon. I would like to mention that in addition to the in-person and remote public comment, all emailed and mailed public comment provided to the commission before each meeting. And the commissioners also review the public comment portal at www.michigan.gov/MICRC on a regular basis. We appreciate everybody who provides us with comment in whatever way they choose to do so. And we invite everyone to continue sharing their thoughts, comments, and maps with us. Thank you very much. I will now pass this over to our chair to continue with our agenda.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Zatella. Commissioners, for those attending and listening, we are moving forward to new business, item 6A, racially polarized voting analysis with Dr. Lisa Hanley, along with VRA and state constitution commentary from Mr. Bruce Adelson, Federal Compliance Consulting. Without objection, I will ask Dr. Hanley to begin. Hearing none, Dr. Hanley, please proceed, and hello.
It would be good if I started with the microphone. Hello again. It's a pleasure to be here in Ann Arbor with the commission. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Okay. Okay. Can everybody see the screen and hear me? Have I figured out how to do this?
Microphone and your move your mouse real quick. I'm going to try to get to your click here. Go mute again.
Okay, now have we got it? Okay.
While we're waiting, I just wanted to note for the record that Commissioner Wagner has turned off her video, but she is still present. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here again. It looks like I've got everything running. I'm going to start with a little refresher course about why I did the analysis and before I get to what the results were. Geez. How do I go down? Okay. The Voting Rights Act is very important in this district drawing process. I've pulled up the redistricting criteria priority pyramid, and you will see that it is number 2 in the pyramid. The first and foremost criteria are the US Constitution and federal law, and the Voting Rights Act is federal law, and it applies everywhere in the country, including Michigan. It prohibits any voting standard, practice, or procedure, including a redistricting plan, that results in the denial or dilution of minority voting strength. A redistricting plan that dilutes minority voting strength is one that either cracks or packs a geographically concentrated minority group. The top example to the left is to the right is an example of a set of districts that cracks the minority community by dividing it among 5 districts, so that they cannot elect a minority preferred candidate in any of those districts. The lower example on the right is an example of a district, the district at the center, that packs minority voters so that they have an impact on only one district and no impact on any of the other districts, despite the fact that you could have probably drawn 2 districts in which they had the ability to elect to elect candidates of choice. When the Voting Rights Act was amended in 1982 to make it clear that you did not have to show that the redistrictors intended to discriminate, only that the plan that they drew actually resulted in discrimination. The Supreme Court first considered this case in 1986 in a case called Thornburg v. Jingles, and they said that minority plaintiffs had to prove 3 preconditions in order to satisfy Section 2
and get a district drawn in which they could have the ability to elect a candidate of choice. The first is that the minority group must be sufficiently large and geographically compact to form a majority in a single member district. This is in essence so that there was actually a remedy available. There is a solution to the problem of how do we elect candidates of choice. The second is that the minority group must be politically cohesive. That is, they must vote for the same candidates. And third, whites must vote as a bloc to usually defeat the minority preferred candidates. If they were not voting as a bloc to defeat these candidates would win, and you wouldn't need to draw a minority district. So how do we know how the minority group is voting? How do we know how whites are voting? What you do is conduct a racial bloc voting analysis. And my job in this particular situation is to actually carry out what's called a racial bloc voting analysis. That is, analyze voting patterns by race to determine if voting is polarized. If whites are voting against a cohesive minority community. I mentioned that first of all, we have, of course, a secret ballot. We don't know the race of the voters when they cast the ballot. So we have to use estimation techniques. And the two most standard estimation techniques are ecological regression analysis and ecological inference analysis. Ecological simply means you're using aggregate data. What we're going to do is we're going to look at precincts rather than individuals, and we're going to look to see if there are patterns across the precincts in which the demographic composition of the precinct is related to the voting patterns of those precincts. So on the left, we see ecological regression. Each precinct in the jurisdiction has been placed on the scatter plot on the basis of the percent Black turnout. This is a jurisdiction in the South where we actually know turnout by race. And the vertical axis is votes for Warnock. This is an election that occurred in January of 2021. It is the race for US Senate in Georgia. This is real data in a specific county. You can see a pattern here, and the pattern is the higher the percent Black across the precincts, the more votes you see for Warnock. And that's the estimation technique we use to determine how whites and Blacks are voting in this particular jurisdiction. This practice, this particular technique had one disadvantage associated with it, and that is if voting was very polarized, you would get estimates that were outside the logical bounds. You would find something like 105 Blacks vote, 105% of Black voters voted for Warnock, and -5 white voters voted for Warnock. And so in the 1990s, Professor Gary King at Harvard developed another technique called ecological inference. That's what you see on the right side. In this process, each precinct is actually represented by a line rather than a point. We're using more information about the precinct to get this line, and that is all the possible combinations of Black and white votes that could have produced the result for that particular precinct is represented by a line as opposed to a point. And then the computer generates a best guesstimate of what the actual composition of the votes for the Black candidate was. So this is the analysis that I performed in Michigan. Now you need a few pieces of information in order to perform this, and that is that you need to have an area that has a sufficient number of minority voters to actually estimate voting behavior by race. I looked at 8 counties. There were several counties in the west of Michigan that had a growing minority population around Grand Rapids, Muskegon County, and Kent County. And it turns out that there was not a sufficient number of minority votes to estimate voting behavior on the basis of race in those two counties. The same is true of, I looked at 6 counties in the east. I was able to produce estimates for Wayne, Oakland, Genesee, and Saginaw counties. I was not able to do so for Washtenaw and Macomb counties. There was not a sufficient number of Black turnout to estimate Black and white voting behavior in those 2 counties. So what I'm going to give you is the results of my analysis both statewide for the entire state of Michigan and for these 4 counties, because actually what you want to do is you want to do an area specific analysis, because it turns out that voting patterns are different depending on where you are in the state. For example, it may be the case, using the example I gave you before of the Georgia election, turns out that in the rural areas of Georgia, the election was very polarized, while in the urban area around Fulton, it was much less polarized. In fact, it wasn't polarized at all in certain areas. So it matters where you are in the state as to how much polarization there is. And when you're drawing districts, it matters what it looks like in that specific area. The court is quite adamant about doing a district-specific analysis. And this is why I looked at these counties. I looked at 13 elections. There have been 13 statewide and federal elections over the decade. These include U.S. Senate, U.S. President, U.S. Senate, and 3 statewide contests, the gubernatorial contest, the Attorney General, and Secretary of State, and the Treasurer, like 4 statewide contests. Now, the courts have indicated that the most probative contests to look at are contests that include minority candidates. So you've had 4 contests, statewide contests over the last decade that included minority candidates. These are the most probative. You've also, and I've listed them here, you had the 2012 race for US President. You had a 2014 Secretary of State contest. You had the 2018 and 2020 US Senate contests. Then you had 2 contests that included minority candidates as running mates. This is the 2018 gubernatorial contest and the 2020 presidential contest. So these, I looked at all 13 statewide contests, but these are the most probative according to the courts. Ordinarily, I would look at statewide Democratic primaries as well. I could not look at Republican primaries. There is not enough minority participation in Republican primaries to actually analyze voting patterns by race. So I look at Democratic primaries, and in this case, you've only had 1 statewide Democratic primary this entire decade, and that was in 2018 for governor. And so I looked at that contest as well. Now, this is what the results look like, and I'm going to explain how to read this table. Every election that I looked at for every area has a table that looks like this. So this is statewide. This is the election listed here, 2018 governor. And here are the candidates. Here are the parties of the candidates. Here are the races of the candidates. Here's the votes that they received statewide. Now, there are actually 4 estimates for Black voters, and there are 4 estimates for white voters. I talked to you about ecological regression, and I mentioned the problem that you have with ecological regression, and there it is, 104% of Black voters supporting Whitmer. I didn't mention homogeneous precincts. These are the actual results of precincts across the state that are overwhelmingly one race. So these are precincts across the state that are 90% or more voting age population Black in composition. So that's how I derive the homogeneous precinct analysis. That's the HP. So this is actual data. So when you look at all of the 90% plus precincts, 90% plus Black voting age population precincts, 95.6% of those voters supported Whitmer. There are actually two different forms of ecological inference analysis. One is called 2x2, and that is the one that was developed in the 1990s. It's since been refined so that I can account for differential turnout, and that's what's in the last column, 95.3%. Now, all of these are derived from different techniques, so you wouldn't expect them to be exactly the same, but they're all telling a very similar story, and that is overwhelming Black support for Whitmer. Now, on the other side of this table, we'll get our estimates. I report the estimates for the white voters. So let me see if I can get this to work. Why is it not doing this? Okay, so we've got 41.1% in the overwhelmingly white precincts. 41.1% of the voters supported Whitmer. The AR estimate is 38.9. The 2x2 is 40.6. And let me see if I can. And the R times C is 44.8%. So these are our estimates. Now, I forgot to mention down here the votes for office. This is the percentage of voting age population that actually turned out and cast a ballot for that particular office. So you can see there's a difference in turnout rates, and that is around 35% of Black voting age population turned out and cast a ballot for the governor in 2018, while the number was higher, almost double, for white voters. This contest is racially polarized. If Blacks voting alone had voted alone, Whitmer would have been elected. She was. And then, of course, if whites voted alone, it would have been the Republican candidate who was elected. Below, I have the primary for this election. I have the gubernatorial primary of 2018. We have the three candidates listed here. They're all Democrats. We have their race. We have the percentage of votes they received. And you will see that this contest is also polarized. This contest, you have a plurality of the Black voters supporting Fanadar, while a majority of the white voters supported Whitmer. So this contest is also polarized. Okay. Now, I did this, and you will see tables in the report that I eventually produce for every election, but I'm going to show you summaries of this in a little bit. So, overall, statewide, in the 13 elections that I looked at, 12 were polarized. In those elections that are most probative to the courts, that is, those that included minority candidates, 6 out of the 6 were polarized. And in the Democratic primary, of which there was only one, it was polarized. And I mentioned that I looked at 4 counties, and here are the results of that analysis in the 4 counties. In Genesee County, we have 9 of the 13 contests polarized, with 5 of the 6 with minority candidates. The Democratic primary was polarized. In Saginaw, it's 11 out of 13 of all of the contests, 6 out of 6 of those contests with minority candidates, and the Democratic primary was polarized. In Oakland, all 13 of the general elections were polarized, including the 6 with minority candidates, but the Democratic primary was not. And finally, in Wayne County, where voting is less polarized, you'll see that 7 of the 13 contests were polarized. 3 of those were with minority candidates, and the Democratic primary was polarized. What this tells me is that voting is polarized in Michigan. And what that means is the Voting Rights Act comes into play, and districts that provide minority voters with the opportunity to elect their candidates must be drawn. Okay, so voting is polarized. You have to create districts if they can be created, but more importantly, perhaps, is that those districts that exist must be maintained. It is important to continue to provide minority voters with the opportunity to elect their candidates of choice. So if districts can be drawn, they should be drawn. If districts exist and minority candidates are winning only because the districts exist, those districts must be maintained. Those districts must be maintained in a way that gives minorities an opportunity to elect their candidates of choice, but you don't just choose an arbitrary target. You don't just say 50% voting age population is what we need to maintain these minority districts. And it is the Supreme Court that has told us this. And Bruce gets to talk more about this later. But the fact is you have to do a district-specific functional analysis in each area that you are to determine what an effective minority district looks like. No arbitrary percentages. So, how do we do a district-specific functional analysis? By functional, we mean we have to look at actual voting behavior. We're going to look at election results. By district-specific, I told you already, we're going to look first at voting patterns, not just statewide, but district or broader areas like counties. Now, the first approach I'm going to discuss with you today, and that is taking the estimates of participation rates, minority cohesion, and white crossover voting from the RBV analysis that I conducted, and using that to calculate the percent minority population needed in a specific area for the minority preferred candidates to win a district in that area. But there's another approach that you can use, that the commissioners can use as they're drawing, and that is to look at the election results of what I call bellwether elections to determine if that election had occurred within the proposed boundaries of the districts that you're creating, if those minority preferred candidates would have carried those districts. There are 4 bellwether contests in particular that you're going to focus on. You'll recall that I mentioned that there were 6 contests that included minority candidates. In 2 of those contests, the minority candidate was not the candidate preferred by minority voters. That was in 2018 Senate and the 2020 Senate. That was the Republican John James. So the 4 bellwether contests that you'll be focusing on to determine if the districts you've drawn will allow minorities to elect candidates of choice will be the other 4 contests: the 2012 presidents, contest for president, the 2014 contest for treasurer, the 2018 gubernatorial contest, and the 2020 presidential contest. You can take recompiled election results and determine if the minority preferred candidates would carry the districts. Now, I'm going to go back and spend the rest of the time talking about the first approach. So this table above takes what I mentioned, that is the participation rates, the degree of minority cohesion, and the degree of white crossover vote for the minority preferred candidate, and tells you how that minority preferred candidate would do in each of these, in a 55% district, 50, 45, 40, and 35% Black voting age population district. This is how this works. This is algebra. It took me about a day to work out the formula and how to do it in Excel, but it's actually just algebra. What I did here is, you'll remember this chart from earlier. I'm going to take the participation rate, and I'm going to use in this instance the best estimate, and that is the EI estimate that takes into account differential turnout. So I'm going to take 35.2%, and it's going to go into this column. That's votes cast for office. I don't know why my arrow keeps disappearing. This is the percentage of votes by Black voters for the minority preferred candidate. And I got that from this table. This is that number. This is just 100 minus 95.3%. This is the votes cast, votes cast for office by whites, and you'll see that's up here. Then the percentage of votes for Whitmer here, this number subtracted from here, and then a lot of algebra to tell me what this candidate would have gotten in a district that was 55%. Whitmer would have gotten 65.2% of the vote. In a district that was 50%, she would have gotten 62.8% of the vote. In a district that was 45%, she would have gotten 60.6%. In a district that was 40%, she would have gotten 58.5%. And a district that was 35%, she would have gotten 56.4%. This is an important piece of information. I want you to notice that when I go down, say the 40% Black voting age population column, the Black preferred candidate wins every contest. This tells me that statewide, it's quite possible that you do not need a majority-minority district to elect a minority preferred candidate. Now, these numbers are statewide, and it's more important that we look at each county individually, because as I mentioned earlier, it may be the case that the numbers change depending on where you are. So here's Saginaw County, same thing, the numbers come from the same place, from the racial Black voting analysis. Here in Saginaw County, well, we're not going to go down to 35% because the minority preferred candidate does not win some of these contests. So this is a little bit different than statewide. Saginaw County, the district is probably going to have a higher Black voting age population than it would be the case statewide, and then it will be the case you'll see in other counties. Here's Genesee County. Voting is a little less polarized. We're getting more white crossover vote. Here are the votes. What we call white crossover votes is white vote for the minority preferred candidate. And we're getting more, and this is why a 35% district looks like it would be effective in Genesee County. In Oakland County, 35% isn't going to work. 40% looks like it might work. In Wayne County, where we have a lot more white crossover vote, 35% might well work. I'm not advocating that you draw the districts at this amount. I'm advocating that you keep in mind that the districts do not have to be majority-minority in composition, and then you turn to the recompiled election results for what you have in any given district, because it matters not only how much the area that you're drawing, how high the Black participation rates are, but how much white crossover voting you might get. So you're going to look at each individual district as you draw it, looking at the bellwether elections to make certain that the minority preferred candidates would win. Now, I recognize that you might be surprised that despite what is a very polarized state, that a district that is not majority-minority may be all that is necessary to provide minorities with an opportunity to elect their candidates of choice. But what I want to show you now is what I call the threshold of representation. In the Senate, there are no districts between 36 and 45%, but every district over 48% elects a Black candidate to office. And because I've done a racial Black voting analysis on the general elections for the Senate, I can tell you these are all minority preferred candidates. You can see that 67% of the districts over 35% elect Black preferred Black candidates to office. The difference is even more striking in the threshold of representation in the State House. Every district over 36% Black and voting age population elects minority candidates to office. And in fact, 89% of those over 25% Black elect minority candidates to office. And again, there are no House districts between 37 and 47% Black, even though many of those would have been effective districts. This last slide before I turn it over to Bruce is a maps of the State House and the State Senate districts, because I wondered why there weren't any 35 to 45% Black districts and what the shapes of the districts were that were electing Blacks to office. And I will tell you that there are some, let me see if I can go back. There are some very packed Black districts. We have some districts that I could not produce estimates of white voting behavior because there were virtually no whites voting in these districts. We have State House districts that are we have 3 of them that are well over 90%. And the Black preferred candidates are getting well over 90% of the vote. Those are packed. It doesn't like me going back. Okay. And those are not necessarily prettily shaped districts. It wasn't like they were creating districts that were nice little compact districts.
Dr. Hanley, I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
We have a question from Commissioner Lang.
Yes. I can't.
Dr. Hanley, I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation. I just have a quick question. When doing the racial block voting, is it only based off from African American votes, or is it based off from any other ethnicities?
That's a good question, and I should have said that earlier on. Now, in many jurisdictions, of course, you would look at other ethnicities, and I would have liked to have done so in Michigan, but it turns out there are no counties with a sufficient number of Hispanics or Asian Americans or Native Americans to do the analysis. But yes, typically you could and should do the analysis if there was a sufficient number of minorities to do the analysis.
Commissioner Lang, does that satisfy your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
And Dr. Hanley, you have another question from Commissioner Rothorn.
Dr. Hanley, I'm thinking about the census data and how we have a significant population of Arab Americans in Dearborn. And so following up on what Commissioner Lang was saying, do we have any, or is there any way to understand the Arab American or the MENA vote in this analysis?
There is not, because we don't have the composition of the precincts. We don't have the MENA composition of the precincts available from the census. And I need to know the composition. And I'm going to let Bruce expand on, I'm just providing the factual information, and Bruce gets to expand on why you might also not be doing that kind of analysis. In fact, I am done. I'm going to finish with this last map. So before I hand it over to Bruce, Are there any questions specifically for me, or should we hand it over to Bruce and then you can ask us questions in concert? It looks like you have a question from Commissioner Ede.
Well, first off, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm sure that was quite challenging to put together in such a short amount of time. You had two counties there, Genesee and Wayne County, where the 35% minority population picked the minority candidate the majority of the time. But for both of those counties, it looked like it could possibly be even lower than 35%. Was this data tabulated maybe to 30% or 25% to see if at those numbers, the minority candidate was still preferred?
So theoretically, you could do that, but at that point, I don't think that you would have a significant enough minority population to use the word effective minority district in that case. That in those instances, it might well be the case that voting just wasn't polarized at all.
I have one more question. Thank you for that answer. So I'm maybe Bruce will expand on this in a minute, but I mean, this says the districts are packed, purposely packed. So how do we unpack them? Is the question at hand.
And I'm going to give that to Bruce.
Good afternoon. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Handley, for your presentation. There are a couple of points that I wanted to make, and in part that they may address the last comment from Commissioner Reed. I mean, I wanted to remind everybody that we've previously talked about packing, and Dr. Handley addressed the Alabama case that we've talked about before. And I want to really stress the fact that picking arbitrary numbers for minority populations is routinely regarded as unconstitutional, as racial gerrymandering. That was true in the Alabama case. That was true in the Cooper versus Harris case that we talked about. So remember, everything is driven by analysis and data, as Dr. Handley's been talking about today. But I wanted to make that reinforced point that a minority population, as Dr. Handley has established, there is racially polarized voting in the state of Michigan. She's highlighted the counties that have among the highest minority populations. I think that is very crucial, very important going forward for the commission as a consideration. But to the point about packing, remember that if a district can be established through analysis to be able to elect candidates of choice of the minority community at, let's say, 40%, if you add on population to that the courts constitute that as packing. Dr. Handley had talked about, I think, 3 districts that were over 90% minority population. I have to tell you that this is my 3rd round of redistricting, including my time with the Justice Department, the Arizona Redistricting Commission 10 years ago, and other work that I've done in redistricting. I have never drafted, approved, endorsed a 90% plus district, majority minority district. So I think that if you look at one of the other striking factors of Dr. Handley's analysis, she talked about the opportunity to elect candidates of choice at 35, 40, 45%. Let's assume that 45% is analyzed and considered to be a safe estimate for minorities, protecting minorities' opportunity to elect. Well, let me pause and just think about what that means in relation to these districts. That means the districts that are 90% plus majority minority have double the population they need to protect the rights of minority voters pursuant to the Voting Rights Act to elect candidates of choice. Double the amount. I can't say it. I've looked at this and thought about this and tried to remember the hundreds of plans I've looked at from coast to coast. I don't ever remember seeing that offhand. So that point about packing and also cracking, very essential. Those are always red flags. You have districts that are constructed when there is racially polarized voting, which there is, to give minority voters the opportunity to elect. So if they can elect at 45%, let's say, why would you put 90%? Why would you put 80% minority population in the district? So I'm going to leave that for further discussion, but that was those were among the most striking aspects of Dr. Handley's work. So I would reiterate what we all have talked about before: the Alabama case, Cooper versus Harris, the minority population in districts where it's already been established statewide and in these districts that there is racially polarized voting. You have the amount of minority population to provide minorities with an opportunity to elect their candidates of choice, as Dr. Handley said, so that the districts are effective for minority voters. So as she's established, clearly 90% is not necessary to elect candidates of choice. A lower number would provide minority voters with the protection that the Voting Rights Act intends. So for now, those are the final comments that I wanted to make in concert with Dr. Handley. And as she said, that I think would be very happy to answer questions from the commission. Thank you.
Commissioner Clark.
Thank you for that explanation. So we've got a district that's packed, and we want to unpack it. How do we ensure that we don't unpack it and then it becomes cracked? And therefore, we're not in compliance in the other direction. How do we ensure that as we're doing the redistricting?
You will have disaggregated election results. You will be able to recompile these results for these bellwether elections, because you want to make sure, as you noted, when you unpack the district, there's still at least one effective district, and quite possibly there might be two effective districts once you unpack that district. I anticipate something like that happening, that you're able to draw two districts that elect Black preferred candidates to office. But you'll look at the recompiled election results to make sure that the districts that you have drawn are effective minority districts. So those 4 contests that I mentioned as bellwether contests will be in the redistricting package. And as you draw, you can hit the button that will tell you how those candidates are doing in the proposed districts. So it's an automatic visual that is telling you if you are creating a district that will be effective or not.
And if I could add briefly to that, that real-time approach of being able to click on an area and see how these candidates would have performed in these areas that you're looking at is crucial. And to your point, that's a great point. I agree that there's always a danger of going too far down, but that's something that we'll be talking about on an ongoing basis. I think that just as, you know, as an academic extrapolation, creating a minority district of 20% minority, I would think would not be the most advisable, but that's something, the data, you'll see it will be, as you move into the areas that you decide to move into, seeing how the candidates would perform will be not only very important, it will be really striking to see how these election results change given whatever areas you go into.
I'll add that you do want to pay a lot of attention to the recompiled election results rather than these estimates that I'm telling you of, say, 35 or 40 or 45%, because it matters, again, what minorities you're encompassing in the district in a very district specific way and what whites you're encompassing. So it's very important to look very specifically, very district specifically as you draw the districts at what that district will do.
Thank Thank you, Dr. Hanley and Commissioner Clark and Bruce for jumping in to answer those questions. And Commissioner Clark, that was a good question. I'm going to have General Counsel take the floor for a minute because she has a question for you both.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you in particular to Dr. Handley and Mr. Adelson for joining us today. Lisa's analysis, Dr. Handley's analysis and her findings and Mr. Adelson's conclusions that he's able to draw from those findings will certainly impact the MICRC's critical work going forward in redistricting. I did want to note for the benefit of the public that Dr. Handley's presentation will be available on the MICRC website. And I wanted to also highlight that just yesterday, the Department of Justice released guidelines related to redistricting and compliance with the Voting Rights Act. And I was hopeful that Mr. Adelson could address that issue for the benefit of the commission and the public.
Thank you very much. That's a great question. I got when I got to Ann Arbor last night, I had emails from a lot of people around the country saying, "Hey, Bruce, did you see what the Department of Justice did?" So let me just go into that in a little detail. The Department of Justice every 10 years typically puts out some guidance about redistricting. Previously, the Department of Justice is focused on Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which required pre-clearance of redistricting plans in covered areas. Michigan had 2 townships that were covered by Section 5, but the Supreme Court decided in the Shelby County versus Holder case, I think 8 years ago, that the formula deciding which states are covered and which states were not was unconstitutional. So Section 5 doesn't apply anymore. So, however, my old friends at the Justice Department put together guidance about vote dilution, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, as Dr. Handley has been talking about. I don't recall that Justice has done this before. One of my clients in another part of the country said, "Bruce, is this like a shot across the bow that Justice is telling everybody about redistricting?" And my answer is yes, just to remind everyone about these myriad requirements under the VRA and the Constitution. And just I pulled up the guidance. I just wanted to read a little bit just to kind of give you a flavor of what the Supreme Court case, the Thornburg versus Jingles case that Dr. Hanley talked about, and what Justice looks at. So just as an example, liability under the Voting Rights Act depends on the unique factual circumstances of each case and the totality of the circumstances in the particular jurisdiction in question. The guidance talks about a Supreme Court decision in the 70s concerning Texas called White versus Register. And in that case, the Supreme Court found that Texas's use of multi-member state legislative districts impermissibly diluted minority voting strength. I picked that out specifically because that issue is extremely important. That goes to the comments before of Commissioner Reed and Commissioner Clark about what percentage is necessary to protect the opportunity to elect, which goes to another point that Justice made in the guidance, that districting plans may dilute minority voting strength by cracking or fragmenting the minority voters among several districts where a block voting majority can routinely outvote them, or, as we were just talking about, by packing them into one or a small number of districts to minimize their influence. So I appreciate the question very much on the minds of redistrictors across the country. And I think Justice's guidance is very well timed as a redistricting process, for the most part, is just beginning to pick up. And it's a reminder that these requirements are significant. It's also a reminder that the pitfalls, and as my old DOJ friends like to remind everybody, that we're here and we're watching what folks are doing. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Bruce. General Counsel, does that satisfy your point?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. I think that also Mr. Kim Brace has a question, and he is attending virtually. We can't see him, but I was told that he has a question. Oh, there he is. I'm sorry. I didn't, not virtually, behind me.
I'm hidden behind all these monitors up here.
Yeah, feel free to kind of do a loud whisper. I'm sorry. I misunderstood Commissioner Rothorn.
What I wanted to remind the commission that you will be able to see two additional pieces of information as you draw. You have already on the bottom of your screens when you draw, you'll have the racial percentages on the for the districts as they are being created. So you'll see what is the racial characteristics of the district. We will be adding on the various data sets that Lisa was talking about of the recompiled election results, and they will be in additional tabs on those on the bottom of the screen, so that indeed, as you draw, you'll be able to flip over to those tabs also to look at those recompiled election results that Dr. Hanley was talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Sorry, I didn't notice you back there. Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Eid.
So if I'm reading this data correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of gives us a lower bound of the number of minorities we can have in these counties: Saginaw, Genesee, Oakland, and Wayne. But do you have any advice on an upper bound of percentage we can get to that wouldn't be packing the district? And that also kind of begs a question, and it might be a more academic question. If there is an upper bound, then 10 years ago when these maps were enacted by the state legislature, how did they pass the snuff test with over 90% of the district being packed with one minority?
Madam Chair.
General Counsel.
So what the data demonstrates is again, as Dr. Hanley indicated, that the racially polarized voting and the levels at which they're packed would be addressed through this process. Again, Mr. Brace just noted the data that would be used. I think it's also significant to highlight that based on the criteria in the Constitution, even if there is not a significant minority population that would satisfy or require Voting Rights Act compliance, the third criteria, while the discussion has been focused on communities of interest, the first clause of the third criteria is shall reflect the state's diverse population. So there will also be an opportunity to consider minority populations, particularly the ones Dr. Handley indicated that are not present in significant numbers in counties statewide, or in certain counties, pardon me, that those would be able to be respected through the third criteria. So again, I think utilizing the data that and the findings of Dr. Handley in conjunction with your work moving forward and the advice and counsel of Mr. Adelson with the data layers that are built into your mapping software will put the commission on very strong footing to address these issues.
Commissioner Lang.
My question was actually the same pretty much as Anthony's, that if they're packed, how did they legally pass? So that was addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lang.
Madam Chair.
Other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Eid.
Last one, I think, unless another one pops into my head.
That's why I always take a moment when no hands, I don't see hands.
Given that the census data does not account precinct-wide for Middle Eastern and North African populations, how can we go, there has to be some other piece of data. We've talked about the ACS 2019 data. We've talked about communities of interest data, but how can this commission make sure we protect that minority group?
To that point, I think that as General Counsel said, that with the diverse populations requirement of the Constitution, your communities of interest and looking at the communities that have come up, for example, in public hearings, the public hearings concerning Dearborn and Hamtramck, with focusing on the information that's available, whether it's from the ACS, the public comments, and the commissioner's knowledge of the state of Michigan, as you've demonstrated it during the mapping sessions, understanding where the populations are. But you do point to a significant issue that is being discussed in the Census Bureau today. But I think that given the information, at least that I've seen in the communities of interest descriptions and the public comments, a lot of public comments in the hearing, for example, in Dearborn about the concentration of the people of Middle Eastern and Near Eastern ancestry. So my suggestion would be that that would be a good place to start, an ideal place to start. And that's something that, you know, again, going forward, that we'll be looking at, advising and talking about.
And Kim?
Yes, Bruce is correct. The Census Bureau does not have a current tabulation of the MENA population. That was attempted to be done, but it is not there. But it is there for the ACS. And if you recall, in one of my presentations, I did a series of maps showing you other concentrations of different groups. That is data coming from the ACS. We can overlay that in terms of as we're drawing and at least letting you see where those concentrations are located. We won't be able to tabulate the MENA categorization because it's not there, but at least we can see where they're concentrated as we're drawing.
Thank you, Kim. And General Counsel, I'm sorry, I missed your hand.
No, Madam Chair, actually, that Mr. Brace's follow-up to that was certainly appropriate. I wanted to circle back and answer more directly both Commissioner Eads' question and Commissioner Lang's follow-up question regarding the findings that were presented today and the significance. I would state that those districts were not challenged in court as to racial gerrymandering. What did occur in Michigan was a League of Women Voters versus Benson litigation that resulted in the findings of partisan gerrymandering that based on the US Supreme Court decision in Ruscio that partisan gerrymandering is not a question for the federal courts. So again, we had litigation in Michigan in regard to the 2010 maps in regard to partisan gerrymandering, but not to racial gerrymandering claims.
Thank you, General Counsel. Any other final questions from commissioners? Okay, thank you to Dr. Hanley and Mr. Adelson for their very informative presentation. And we appreciate your work to not only inform the commission, but those attending and the public watching. Without objection, we will move forward to agenda item 6D and continue with the communities of interest regional consideration process. Yesterday, we completed reviewing the Upper Peninsula communities of interest. So today we'll be reviewing communities of interest, also known as COIs, in the Northeast and Northwest regions of the state. I would ask Commissioner Zatella if she would facilitate the process, starting with Commissioner Curry, but she's also allowed to say that she doesn't want to facilitate the process.
No, it's fine. I'd be happy to facilitate. So we are moving on to which region? Was it Northeast or Northwest or both?
Both and Northeast and Northwest.
Northeast and Northwest. Okay. So Commissioner Curry, where are you, Commissioner Curry?
To your left.
Okay, to your left. Okay, grab your glasses. And I think we have Ken back there. So Ken, we're gonna need you to.
One moment.
Yep, I'll give everybody a second to get ready. All right, so just to refresh everybody's recollection, we are going to work through the clusters that we have in front of us for the northeast and northwest regions. And let me get my map here. I believe that would be looking at starting with cluster A2 would be the first place that we would start, Commissioner Curry.
These are supposed to be green.
So the supporting detail with what is the question? I'm looking right now for you. So the supporting data for cluster A2, when I'm looking at it online, it's showing up as page 25 out of 157. Let me see if that aligns with the actual document. And the actual packet I have. Okay. So in the actual document, it's page 24.
Madam Chair.
Rebecca,
Yes.
are you still waiting for me?
Yep. Do you have your computer? Would that be easier?
I can see the computer right there.
Okay.
Where were we at? We're on A what?
A2.
A2?
Yep, which starts with the very first one is Casey's NMI district recommendation. That should be at the top of your page.
I thought we did those yesterday.
Well, we did yesterday, but we only covered the portions that applied to the Upper Peninsula. So we're sort of giving it a second brush with respect to Northern Michigan.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yes.
I have the description of the cluster as well, if you would like me to read it.
A description of the cluster?
Yes.
So she said, yes, please go ahead.
Quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a request from one of the commissioners to raise the lights so that they can see in the rear. Thank you so much. Okay, now we can discuss and read.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Cluster A2, titled Upper Minton East. This area is united by a seasonal tourism-based economy and agriculture. There are a lot of outdoor recreational opportunities. Residents regularly travel to nearby counties for goods, services, and hospitals. Concerns include a lack of nearby essential services and keeping the coastline watersheds clean. And that description is on page 2 of the report. And to orient our commissioners and our public audience, Kent, please confirm if I'm correct. The pink lines that we see on the screen, those are the district lines that the commission has previously drawn, the draft district lines. And the green lines, all of the green lines are the cluster. And the cluster is comprised of individual COI submissions.
Okay. Right now, excuse me, Madam Chair. The green lines right now are what's called cluster area number 2. Is that where we're at?
Do you have your microphone on, Ken?
Can I be heard? Okay. The green lines are cluster area 2. We have 5 clusters in this general area. Which commissioners?
Are you waiting on me? Okay. I can't see nothing. Okay, for cluster A2, there's 30 submissions, but the Upper Minton East, is there a little pointer there where we can see it, the Upper Michigan East? Okay, this area is united by a seasonal tourism, economy, and agriculture. There are a lot of outdoor recreational opportunities. Residents regularly travel to nearby counties for goods, services, and hospitals. Their concerns include a lack of nearby essential services and keeping the coastline and watersheds clean. So if their concerns include a lack of nearby essential services, we're going to try to see if we can get some essential services close to their area, which would take us to, okay, this is the tourism. I'm having trouble with my glasses. My computer isn't working properly. Okay. The area of, I'm not doing good with seeing this. I can't read that little writing. I'm sorry. I'm having problems with it.
You're having difficulty reading it because it's so small. I am too.
Yeah, I can't
I
see
am
it. These
too.
glasses only for bring something that's near me closer.
Yeah, let me read it to you because I actually have it up on my screen, or I can bring my computer down there and you can, if that would be easier.
No.
So Casey's North Michigan recommendation, tourism-based economy on the northwest coast of the Lower Peninsula, healthcare, manufacturing, and retail are primary industries beyond tourism. Well-funded local governments due to so many second homes in the area, similar cultural values with a mix of Democrats and Republicans since Charlevoix, Petoskey, Harbor Springs, and Traverse City all lean left with the rural areas leaning Republican. This would be well-balanced district with similar communities.
Okay. So you have your pointer on, Kim?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
I'm speaking with Kim because I'm going to see if I can get them as close to the Charlevoix, Petoskey, Harbor Springs, Traverse City, all lean left with the rural areas leaning Republican. So this would be a well-balanced district with similar communities. Okay, so on the map, we need to fill in, I can't see the numbers on there, Ken.
Yes, Commissioner Clark.
Yeah. As I read this one, to me, the way we've drawn the map, the items that this individual has stated in his comment are all present in the districts that we set up. It's I don't see where we're lacking anything that he's talking about. He's talking in some generalities, of course, but I see that those things are covered throughout this part of the region.
Okay, so it's
Commissioner-
covered.
Commissioner Orton.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. We only need to discuss the ones that would be impacted by these district lines. But then again, we need to look at if we had an alternate draft proposal, draft map, and we should look at those lines as well.
Sarah Reinhardt.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Orton. The process document that outlines the process for the commission to review contemplates that you would start in one initial district in the region for today. So that would be Northeast and Northwest. Commissioner Curry, when it is your turn, you could pick one of those districts and examine how the pink lines, the district lines, interact or divide COIs. So that's how the process contemplates examining this. Certainly the commission is able to do as it wishes. Thank you.
So to clarify, Commissioner Curry, you don't have to make any changes or shifts if you feel that the information provided to us from the report reflects what we've already drawn. Does that make sense?
Is that what you're saying? Because if it doesn't, I'll leave it like it is.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, we aren't actually moving lines right now.
Just logging changes.
We're just looking at what we currently have drawn and deciding, okay, does this respect this COI, or is it possible that we may need to make a change in the future? And as we work through the process, those thoughts are going to be recorded, and then at a later point, we will look at the log and together decide to move lines. So we're not moving lines right now. You're just reading the comment, reading the cluster, and deciding based on what's in this cluster, is a line change possibly going to be necessary?
I don't think so. I think we can leave it like it is.
And keep in mind, so which item map is this right now? Kent, is this?
I believe this is version 1, but there's 2 of them up there and I'm trying to sort out as to why there's 2.
Okay. So I think the kind of more red one is number 3, and the more pinky one is probably number 1, based on my recollection from yesterday. Yeah, that would be number 3.
Now I see what's going on. That's which layer are we going to start with? A district file?
So, Juanita, which layer did you want to work with? We had the 2 that we liked from yesterday, number 1 and number 3. Number 1 broke to the west, and number 3 broke to the east. So it just depends on, you see on this one, it comes down the east side of the coast and grabs the Huron River side, and number 1 broke down the west side of the coast and grabbed the Traverse City, Charlevoix side.
Let me see the east.
Excuse me?
She wants to see number 3.
Number 3.
And mind you, I still can't hardly see these numbers accurately too. But I guess you can kind of size them up for me, Kim. Add them up for me.
The number shouldn't impact too much for you at this point, Commissioner Curry, but I understand what you're saying.
So I think under either one of these maps, we're fine with this particular comment, because either way, Traverse City is kept together with the counties immediately surrounding it, up to Charlevoix and Emmett and down through that area, either with either map. It's the community of interest is kept together.
As long as the communities of interest are kept together, then we'll still go east. My problem is I can't, for some reason, read these words. Like, what is that, Monta? I can't see the words clearly. And my computer is not operating correctly.
So I'm sorry, could you say that a little louder?
What did you say, Rebecca?
Oh, I just asked what you were trying to see so that maybe we could read it off for you. Are you just looking at the numbers or?
I'm trying to read the words.
The counties and the areas?
Yes, the names of the counties.
Yeah. So Montmorency, I can't even read them. I think it's Ascota.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, it's not Osceola, it's Ascota. Crawford. Misaki. Commissioner Curry, we're all kind of, the words on the screen are very small, but
Yeah.
we're reading them to you as best as we
Yeah,
can
so
as well.
all the ones on the east, Roscommon, I know that one. Ogama, I know that one. I think Alpena too.
If you guys need help, I can see them perfectly.
Thank you, Commissioner Lang.
Commissioner Lang, take it away then to help out Commissioner Curry.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Do you want me to read them off for her so she knows the counties starting from top to bottom?
yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, on the top next to the line, we have Sheboygan. Then you go east to Presque Isle, Otsego, Montmorency, Alpena, Crawford, Ascota, Alcona, Misaki, Roscommon, Ogama, and Iosco.
Does that help, Commissioner Curry? She was reading them off to you.
You know, I keep telling you guys that if I can't see it, I needed to see it in my own mind, my own head, so I can understand what I'm doing. I'm hearing what she's saying, but I can't see those words, the names of those districts, the regions. I can't see it clear enough so I can make up my own, where I can just kind of make up the map. So maybe you should go to the next person.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing you need to evaluate right now is the comment about the community of interest. Is it divided in any way in our map? And it doesn't appear that it is, because the counties that were mentioned in the areas mentioned in the community of interest are Charlevoix, Petoskey, Harbor Springs, and Traverse City, which are all on the western side of that purple dividing line, and they are all kept together. Commissioner Lett, where is Harbor Springs on that? That it's
Harbor Springs
is around Traverse City, isn't it? No. Or is it farther down?
Harbor Springs is up the coastline, Grand Traverse Bay. You'll see a little sliver of peninsula. That's Old Mission Peninsula. The coastline goes up. Harbor Springs is halfway up from Traverse City, maybe. I don't see it on there particularly, but that's where it is.
Thank you, Commissioner Lett. Okay, so I think at this point, unless anyone disagrees, we've established at this point that 18651 is good. And so at this point, we're going to move on to Commissioner Eid, who is going to pick up with cluster A2, starting with 23789. And from what I'm seeing, looking through these comments, it seems like a lot of these are very similar. So I think it might be helpful if we can kind of clump them together. Because a lot of them are mentioning Grand Traverse City, Leelanau, Old Mission Peninsula. I'm seeing that over and over and over again. So maybe we can kind of clump them together so we can move through them a little bit more efficiently. But I will at this point hand it off to Commissioner Eid, and if you could sort of pick up where Commissioner Curry left off, because you have the benefit of younger eyes than the rest of us. So we will let you start for us.
Of course, Madam Chair. So got young guys, but I still wear glasses. So we're going to go to comment C639. It's also 23748. It's titled, the overall submission information is titled simply Northern Region. And they go on to talk about a specific area being the Grand Traverse region. This individual says that this region has people who live and work here mostly because of the values that they hold and should be grouped together with the same representation. Do y'all want me to keep going or?
Commissioner E, can you clarify for the other commissioners what page you're reading from?
Reading supporting data for cluster A2. It is on page 25.
And what portal link is that?
What was that?
What portal link, like the numbers on the side, which one does that correspond to?
23748.
Okay.
Was the one directly under what Commissioner Curry just read?
Commissioner Eads, the highlighted green is 23748. The green outline is 23748.
Wonderful, thank you.
And Commissioner E, you can continue to go through the rest of them.
Okay, so as far as for this comment, I think the lines pretty much match up with what they said as far as a Senate map goes. For that, we're just doing Senate, right? We're not going on the House map at this moment.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, then I will move on to the next comment, 26704. This comment is about the natural environment quality of life. They go on to say that the quality of life and natural environment in northern lower Michigan, so the north part of the lower peninsula, people migrate to northern MI largely due to loving the natural environment, whether they come for a weekend or decade to stay and live up here. The vast public forests, rivers, and lakes provide quality recreational opportunities, great tourism, clean air, peace, and quiet, clean water, and wildlife, providing a higher quality of life for many. They then submitted a map, and on the comments on the map say people live and come to northern MI for quality of life, to enjoy the natural environment around them and have clean air and clean water and outdoor areas to recreate in. They list fishing, hunting, biking, skiing, hiking, again, etc. And again, I think this pretty much matches up with all of the areas that we've already done. Really, for the Senate, the only question that we're going to have to decide is, are we going to go left bound or right bound in upper Michigan? I believe one of the maps that we have has the eastern part of the upper peninsula with the left part of the Minton, and the other one has the eastern part of the upper peninsula with the right part of the Minton. The next comment is 29622. They say they want Leelanau County and Traverse City together. It's a rather short comment. It just says Leelanau County, Old Mission Peninsula plus Traverse Bay. And in both, in all four of these draft Senate proposals, we have them together. I think Rob has a question.
Thank you. Commissioner Lang.
I have a question about the process. So I don't know if Julianne or somebody can ask me about the process we're using, but if none of these communities of interest listed in the report are being split up within our lines that we have, do we still go through and read each individual submission?
I was under the impression, no, that we were to move on to the next cluster, but I'm gonna, because this is kind of a point of confusion, and I was watching yesterday and saw it happening then too. I'm gonna have Sarah Reinhardt step in, and then General Counsel, if she has any clarifying points for the process, she can also have the floor.
May I share my screen briefly?
Absolutely.
Great. So I'm going to share a very, very crude drawing of a completely fictitious district, but I think it'll help illustrate the point here. Oops. So the red line, similar to what you're seeing in your map, that's a district that you all have pretend drawn. And these little squiggles, those are COIs. So imagine that these green squiggles right here, those are clusters. So what this process that that your staff has proposed to you all to consider COIs is when you're looking at the cluster, you'll go in alphabetical order. So for example, Commissioner Eid is up right now. So Commissioner Eid, you would start in one district and you would look at the district and say, what lines of the district, the red lines, intersect and divide COIs? Now you'll see that in my little doodle here, there are 3 COIs that are intersected. And there's one right in the middle that's not intersected at all. So while it's certainly important for commissioners to review all COIs, you may not necessarily need to have a discussion about adjusting the lines to accommodate that COI in the very center. But you may note on the left side of the district, there's a COI that is completely divided. So you as commissioners may discuss, do we want to propose moving that line to the left so that we can include the COI completely? Or do we want to move that line on the left to the right so that the district to the left has the COI in it completely? Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense to me.
Great.
What I will say though is I have respect for the process. I think what's happening is there's a difficulty kind of moving from what we were doing to no longer accounting for population. So that's what we've been seeing. I would also suggest that we take a more group approach, both for efficiency and to respect that everyone might not want to have that individual time. And it could put undue pressure as well as cause folks to feel that they are responsible for an area when there are 13 of us. Commissioner Lang has her hand raised.
First, thank you, Ms. Reinhardt, because that completely cleared up a lot of questions I had having that visual. And I'm still on board with making sure that each individual commissioner has a chance to speak. So rather than doing the group, I still like the idea of everybody taking a turn as we did when we drew the lines.
I understand what you're saying, but someone took a turn and became very uncomfortable and the focus was on them for a considerable amount of time. So I just want to account for that as well. I have a question behind me, Commissioner Orton.
I'm thinking it might help speed things up if when we're when we're doing A2, maybe Kent could kind of highlight each submission so that we can see whether it falls within the boundaries or if it's crossing a line, because it's a little hard to tell just reading the description. Then we wouldn't have to read each one and we can talk about the ones that do intersect.
Thank you, Commissioner Orton. I would encourage commissioners to vocalize their perspective about what Commissioner Orton just shared. Vice Chair Zatella.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that we just do that. Let's bring up the map that we had. Kent, if you can share that again. And that way we can see for this particular cluster that we're looking at. So we were on, I'm not sure if we were on map 3 or map 1. So can you also bring up that layer for, so you can see the different communities of interest drawn on this map. And I think what we really need to do is just focus on the ones that are crossing that pink line. So whether we're under this map or the other map, but let's start with this map, which is map 3. As you can see, there are a couple of the communities of interest that are crossing that line. So let's focus on those communities of interest and discuss those. And so that's all within. So let's just focus on the ones that cross the line. Okay, so like that big one crosses the line. So which community of interest number is this?
23748, is that what I'm seeing?
Where are you seeing that at?
Well, I don't know if, I'm going by where his cursor is, but I don't know if that's accurate. So let me just wait and I'll be patient to see if that's the right one.
Okay, so this is what number?
This is 26704.
26704, which is the entire upper Minton. So Commissioner E, do you have any comments about the one that he just had up?
I'm trying to find that number. What number was it?
26704. It begins with natural environment, quality of life, the one you just read.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I just read that one.
Microphone. Speak to your microphone.
Both of our districts that we have drawn do take off part of what is included in this proposed community of interest. Can we, well, this is now, okay. This is a different one that's on the screen now. Can we put back that one that we're talking about? No, it was number
26704, the big one, the one that covers the whole upper Minton.
Excuse me, which COI should be on the screen at this moment?
Which what?
Which COI should be on the screen at this moment?
26704. Yeah, that one right there. Please continue, Commissioner Eid.
Well, this individual has all of Northern Michigan as a community of interest. And, you know, we might be able to do something like this for a congressional district, but I don't think it'll be possible to accommodate a district with this many people in it, or a state senate or a state house district.
I would say even for a congressional district, this is going to be too many people. Any additional comments? Commissioner Orton.
Is this a congressional draft map right now that the purple?
Yes, this is one of the 2 congressional maps that we discussed yesterday. This is version 3, version 4, or version 1 goes the other way and includes the western portion of the upper Minton with the UP. But either way, they cut it down the middle.
Yeah, so obviously we can't fit that much.
Senate. I'm sorry, this is Senate.
Okay.
Again, commissioners, reminding you that we should only be noting and paying attention to conflicts so that we're logging those. If we do not have conflicts, we do need to move on.
Okay, so this now is the 2 maps layered on top of each other. So either way, there would be a conflict with this map. But the point is, do we think we could accommodate that? And would we want to change it in the future?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Lett.
I don't see that 26704 is a conflict. I don't see that as a conflict. I see that as a general statement of what the northern tier counties are of Michigan that has been spoken to as quality of life, natural environment, northern lower Michigan. Everybody understands that. So the question is, at least they do in my mind, the question is the Senate districts that we've drawn, do they as a group encompass those communities of interest? And I would posit that they do.
That would be my understanding of what we're supposed to do as well, or not do, but my understanding of
Our
the
evaluation.
discussion. Yeah. Yep. Though we can't encompass the area, are we speaking? Have we drawn something? Are we keeping the folks together? Have spoken to the area in the data? And to me, it feels like we have.
Yeah.
On either side, they're together, able to experience the things that they've described in terms of the natural environment and quality of life. We had a hand from Commissioner Witches.
I yield back. I was handled by Commissioner Lett. I had the same thought.
Go ahead.
Okay, so unless there are some objections that I'm not hearing, it sounds like we're comfortable with this COI being accommodated in the current draft districts that we have for the Senate. So why don't we move on to another district or another COI and see if there are any others that cross the line. Okay, that one does not cross any of the lines that we have, so we can just move on from that one. This COI similarity does not cross any lines. This one in one map does cross a line. So Commissioner Eid, why don't you look at what number is this one? Kent, could you tell us what number this is? What COI number?
The COI is 30858.
58. Schwantz's ideas on the Traverse region. Community shares tourism, tourism, educational, transportation, agricultural, fruit and wine, and conservation resources and infrastructure. Commissioner Eid, any thoughts? Commissioner Witches?
Actually, it was just handled. I think we're looking at two different maps at the same time there. And in one map, it doesn't cross anything. And then the other one, it does, which could be.
Could you speak a little louder, Commissioner Witches?
I'll take my mask off. There were two different district plans drawn on this map. One, the community of interest crossed one, but not the other. So I guess the potential of having multiple different maps drawn at once being placed on this map when we're discussing the communities of interest is going to cause some confusion. So what I would recommend is we stick next to, we would keep the one up that we liked from yesterday and see if that complies with the community of interest and then decide from there, because now you can't tell if it's either one or two or one and three, and which one of those map drawings are causing the community of interest to be split.
Okay, so Kent, considering that, is this layer one that we're looking at right now or layer three?
Do we want to look at 1 or 3 or 2 or 4?
Let's look at one.
1. 1 is on the screen.
Okay. I feel like that's divvied up more than one. Are there multiple layers on there or is that just one?
That is just 1.
Okay.
I'll turn it off and turn on 3.
Okay.
That is 3.
Okay, so that is 3.
I can make one a different color if that would make things helpful.
That would be helpful, yes.
One is now an orange. Where they overlap is a dark orange.
Okay, so why don't we just log that as if we are proceeding just with map number 1 for the Senate, that we need to take into consideration COI 30858 for potentially cutting off part of that community of interest, and then we can just move on. Does that make sense?
Is Anthony going to speak to this or not?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that for the log, we may want to consider including Benzee County with the rest of what we draw in this area.
All right, can we see some more COIs?
I have a comment.
I'm sorry?
I have a comment.
Oh, Commissioner Lett?
Again, the same comment I had before with the whole northern portion. Benzee County is, as you can see, west and south of Grand Traverse County. And it would appear we put it down with Manistee. The same community shares tourism, educational, transportation, et cetera. So crossing out of that particular Senate district is not going to affect the COI of either the Grand Traverse area or Benzee and Manistee area. They would be considerably the same community of interest in either area.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think you have Ludington below that as well, which is also tourist, and then Pentwater and the whole coastline is tourism. I concur with that assessment, Commissioner Lett. All right, are you good with this COI, Commissioner Eid? So let's look at another one, see if we see any more that have conflicting lines.
So apologies for the interruption. Just to clarify then, is there a proposed line change to that particular district or no?
No.
No.
Well, I thought there was. I thought we were just talking about possibly changing it so that Benzee County is included with the rest of whatever we draw in this region.
Commissioner
Did you
Lett?
think I said that? I'm asking, did you think I said that?
That is what I thought that you said.
No. My comment was that Benzee could literally fit in either one.
Yeah.
And it's fine where it is because of Manistee. Can't see the other.
I think it's
Well, it's going down to
Ludington.
Mason County, goes down that coastline and it fits in there too. So even though it crosses, it doesn't hurt anything.
Okay.
All right, can you continue moving through our COIs so we can just see the different green lines? All
This
right.
is 30970. It doesn't seem to be intersected by either districting plan.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
This is 31185. It's fairly large. And has many intersections.
Commissioner Eid?
Okay, comment number 31185. It's titled Upper North / Lake Michigan. These communities represent Upper North and the Lake Michigan coast. They are demographically similar, religiously, culturally, economically, and ethically. They should form their own state Senate district.
Commissioner Lett?
Well, since that's getting down into Massaky and Wexford, I'd like to have Rhonda chime in on this.
Commissioner Lang, do you have opinion about whether those two counties belong up with Grand Traverse?
You know, Lake County is going to associate more with Mason, and I can see Mason and Manistee associating and being the same. Wexford County, I would say, yes, it could associate with Grand Traverse to an extent, but knowing what I know about more of the central area, I'm not so sure that they correlate together. The ones that are being recommended, especially going up to Antrim, that just doesn't seem cohesive or honestly, it doesn't make that much sense. So that's my input. But everybody's community, their thoughts are different. I personally don't see that one meshing well.
I concur with Commissioner Lang's analysis. While it does cross into out of Grand Traverse County, I've already talked about Benzie and Manistee. I think those are okay crossing out. I don't think crossing out with Misaki, Wexford, and Lake, those are inappropriate. So the majority still of the COI is north and in Grand Traverse. Wexford, Misaki, and Lake are a lot smaller, not as populous counties. And so I would not recommend making a line change based on that COI.
Thank you, Commissioner Lett. I also wonder if we might be overpopulation on this too for a Senate district. Commissioner Witches?
Yeah. That's exactly where I was going to go. That COI is extraordinarily large and we'd be running into population issues. So because it would be violating number one at that particular point of our list of criteria, we should not make line changes based on the COI alone. And most of the items that were stated in previous COIs are addressed right now as well, with ones that we've been reviewing this afternoon.
Thank you, Commissioner Witches. Okay, so are we, do we think there's any conflicts that require us to log the desire to make any changes for the COI, or are we comfortable just rejecting the COI? Commissioner Lett, go ahead if you had a comment.
Well, rejecting is kind of a strong term.
I agree, I agree.
We've looked at the COI and we've made a determination that we don't need to make any line changes based on it.
I think that's probably fair. All right, so at this time, I'm going to hand it back to Chair Kellum because I believe we have run out of time for our afternoon session.
We have commissioners, my deliberating lovelies. So we have, moving on to agenda item 7. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve today. Are there any proposed edits to the proposed minutes for August 20th or August 23rd? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of commission meeting held on August 20th, 2021 at MSU Union Hall? Motion made by Commissioner Lett. Is there a second?
Second.
Who was the second?
Commissioner Witches.
Second made by Commissioner Witches, excuse me. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. You guys have it, and the meeting minutes have been approved. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of commission meeting held on August 23rd, 2021 at MSU Union Hall? Motion made by Commissioner Lett, second made by Commissioner Witches. All in favor of approving the MICRC meeting minutes of August 23rd, 2021, signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. All opposed, signify by raising your hand and saying nay. Commissioners, we do not have any staff reports today. And moving on to the MDOS report, without objection, I will ask Sarah Reinhardt from the Michigan Department of State if she has a report. Hearing no objection, please proceed, Ms. Reinhardt.
No update today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Reinhardt. For correspondence, we received our correspondence in advance of our meeting today, and it was provided along with the written public comments to the commission and our meeting materials. For future agenda items, it is my understanding that there are no future agenda items to share at this time. Are there any announcements? Hearing no announcements, as the items on the agenda are completed and the commission has no further business, a motion to adjourn is in order. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Sarah, is this room going to be secure?
The question is, is the room going to be secure?
Yes, very secure.
Okay.
Motion for adjournment made by Commissioner Witches. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Commissioner Let. You all switched it up this time. All in favor of adjournment, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned from at 3:45 p.m. Thank you so much to everyone watching, our translators, and everyone attending. We really appreciate you and see you at the evening session at 5.